All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, first of all, thank you all for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate your time. I'm Cami Murray, and I'm the Development and Outreach Coordinator here at CVI. And I want to welcome you to tonight's panel, which is Helping Build a More Inclusive Idaho as part of Green Tie 2021. If you don't know, we are in the midst of Green Tie, and we do have a couple more events happening tomorrow. So at noon tomorrow, you can join us to learn more about CVI's elections work. And then our Green Tie keynote will take place tomorrow at 7 p.m. And you can register for both of those events at cvidaho.org/greentie. Tonight, I'm very excited to turn the microphone over to our friends at Inclusive Idaho, which is a Boise-based nonprofit working to make Idaho more accessible for all. We're excited to hear them share their new focus and pathways for efforts in building a more inclusive Idaho. Joining us tonight are their Executive Director, Whitney Mestelle, and Director of Community Impact and Outreach, Austin Foudy. Whitney is driven by her belief that inclusion and belonging can be critical to an individual's ability to thrive in their community. She's committed to building a better Idaho through the elevation of conversation, inclusion, equity, and coalition with those most minoritized. Whitney enjoys spending time in Idaho's outdoors, live music, travel, and all things track and field. A longtime Idahoan residing in Boise, Austin is passionate about building community, transformative justice, and elevating the voices of the minoritized. He is committed to enhancing awareness of systemic inequalities and building strong relationships with fellow Idahoans in order to enact positive social change. Austin is also a lover of literature, an avid local music supporter, and an avid gamer, but he is happiest enjoying the sunshine in the Idaho outdoors or tending to his garden. So we're very excited to have them join us tonight. And just one quick thing before I hand it over to them, which is a little piece of housekeeping. You will notice that you are muted. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop those into the chat box or use the question and answer feature. Our staff is monitoring that, and we will make sure that your questions get answered. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Whitney and Austin. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Whitney, and I'm going to let Austin start the screen share before we get started. Thanks for joining us today. So just a couple of things before we fully get started. We'll sort of just be going over the history of who we are and how we started, because we're a new organization, and then diving just a little bit into what we're looking to do and look towards in the future, and then offering a time for questions. Austin, you can feel free to click next whenever you're ready. So again, like Cami said, I'm Whitney, and also joined by Austin today. So I'll just start by giving a little bit of our story. So our organization is 11 months old, so we're still babies in this, and in this work as far as organizationally. And we started we incorporated on June 10th, but our story really comes out of the fact that we held a vigil at the Capitol on June 2nd of last year. And after that event or moment, we made the decision, after some conversation, that the work that we wanted to see, the change that we wanted to see happen, not just nationally and not solely for Black lives necessarily either, was something that was going to take more than one single event and one single moment, although very significant. The world that we're trying to create or help build takes a lot of work, and so that is how our organization formed. And if you're looking at this picture, this is the four of us on our core team, myself and Austin, and then Whitley and Jesse. So I'm going to go through just a really brief community impact report, because I want folks to know how we started, but yes, what have we done since we started, and what does our work look like? So again, we're 11 months old. Our 1 year birthday will be on June 10th of this year, which is really quickly approaching. And this is a reminder for me as I say it out loud. So the biggest thing that we've done for our organization is a lot of community engagement, and that looks like a bunch of things, whether that's our own programming, events that we've done, organizing with other community organizers or folks within our community, really strategic or significant meetings within our community, and creating learning opportunities for our community. Some of those things are marches. Inclusive Conversations is a series that we have where we have conversations with a diverse group of folks in our community. Some of the other things within like Inclusive Schools, we have met and presented at the Idaho School Board Association. We offered an opportunity for Treasure Valley teachers and counselors to gain some diversity, equity, inclusion training. We're currently offering a professional development credit through NNU, which is a DEI training for teachers. We've had meetings like with city council and local law enforcement, and in Black History Month, for example, we did over 10 or 12 things, whether that was the flags downtown or educational opportunities or education moments, or packets or booklets or toolboxes. And so we've tried to make in the beginning here, as we build and grow and set our foundation for the future, that community engagement piece. A big part of what we do, because we want to be an organization, and we are an organization that's keeping the pulse and the conversation alive around inclusion in our state. And that includes all of those things. And then from a giving aspect, what have we done from a giving aspect? And so going through all of our financials is boring, but one of the things that is really important to us is not only like raising funds to keep our work going, but making sure that we are also financially supporting work that we don't have the capacity to do that's elevating inclusion. And so we've given around $18,000 back to our community already, and whether that's us supporting other folks' work, donating to other equitable charitable causes, or just simply giving money to folks who are doing something that's elevating inclusion in sort of their neck of Idaho. And part of that was us making the choice to give $10,000 in COVID relief to our community last December from a grant that we received. And so I bring up giving because I think it's really, really important. And in all of the work that we do, giving is important because at the end of the day, financial access is a big equity and a big inclusion barrier. And so making sure that we are doing that work as well, and not just what we feel like our communities need, or what minoritized communities need, but what they're telling us that they need. And sometimes that is either direct monetary aid, or the funds to elevate their own work.
Right on. And so now, I'll talk about some, and I'm Austin, and I'll talk about some of the pathways that we see that, the pathways to inclusion that we see have deemed it necessary and vital to pursue. So those 4 pathways are DEIJA, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and access, our programming, community engagement, and social change. So through DEIJA, most of us have likely had the opportunity to attend and participate in diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops or seminars in our professional experience. And as members of minoritized groups, the Inclusive Idaho team believes that such opportunities often fall short of meeting their intended outcomes, leaving much to be desired. And frankly, we believe that we can do it better. So by incorporating justice and access in the scope of our focus, we believe that a more rounded and inclusive outcome may be achieved, positively impacting the workplace, thus benefiting both the institutions and individuals who engage in this work. Educated and certified in human resources, DEI, gender and sexuality, anti-racism, public relations and communication. We're offering training, large-scale and keynote speeches, webinars, workshops, and sustained partnership commitments tailored to assist each specific organization that believes in earnest in fostering more welcoming and inclusive environments. These opportunities may be in the form of consultations and assessments, strategy building, policy development and implementation, and both single and multi-day workshops, webinars, and educational training courses. And on our programming side, while we have our site set on a robust set of programming, our 3 existing programs include Inclusive Wellness, Inclusive Outdoors, and Inclusive Schools. Each Inclusive Idaho program has a designated committee of community members either interested in or connected to each field who provide meaningful feedback and oversight for each initiative. So we'll take a look at each of these: Inclusive Wellness, Outdoors, and Schools. So through Inclusive Wellness, we have a commitment to increase access and decrease cost gaps in mental, physical, and emotional wellness care for Idaho's BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, immigrant, refugee, and disabled communities. Minoritized and underserved communities such as these have been historically denied or allowed limited access to wellness support services. The disparate nature of this gap may, to many, seem insurmountable. It is Inclusive Idaho's goal to close this gap, eliminate stigma, and enhance accessibility to such services. Mental health care specifically is an oft overlooked facet of well-being. By enhancing access to these services, we may improve the overall health outcomes and quality of life of many of the most marginalized and vulnerable Idahoans. Thus far, we have partnered with Wander Medicine, a clinic located in Boise focused on reducing healthcare costs and enhancing medical resource accessibility. And we have also teamed up with mental health care clinicians who specialize and are receptive to patients who identify as BIPOC, LGBTQIA+, and or are otherwise minoritized. Each of these clinicians has been screened and approved by the Inclusive Idaho team to ensure that their philosophies and practices are congruent with our mission in order to best serve the communities that we aim to support. And we're all very excited about our Inclusive Outdoors program. Increasing involvement, access, and safety for underrepresented Idahoans who desire to enjoy and experience the outdoors. Our Inclusive Outdoors program, aims to bridge that gap as well. Outdoor recreation is one of the things that makes living in Idaho so great. Unfortunately, access to many of these activities are restricted due to their cost-prohibitive nature and issues surrounding access. Through sponsored mentoring programs and equipment, as well as education, Inclusive Idaho is able to create an avenue through which those who might not otherwise have the opportunity to may find the joy and beauty of Idaho outdoor recreation in responsible and sustainable ways. Inclusive Idaho is working in concert with statewide partners, including Idaho Rivers United, Boise Bicycle Project, Idaho River Sports, Commons Climbing Gym, Vertical View, New Roots Program, Wood River Land Trust, and Wood River Trails Coalition. It is through these partnerships that we're able to pull off a lot of the things that we aim to do. So where a lot of our equipment comes from, it's where a lot of our mentors are siphoning in through. And in addition to that, we have developed a gear closet. We're currently receiving donations for gently used recreation gear that may be utilized by participants who may not be able to afford it. And ultimately, this initiative serves to enhance representation in the realm of Idaho recreation. Issues of acceptance and belonging have long marred recreational engagements in Idaho, and it is our intent to combat that through meaningful engagement, education, and support. And Whitney talked a bit about our inclusive schools programming, but ultimately we are committed to youth as the catalyst for change. In partnership with students, teachers, and education professionals, we hope to build more inclusive classrooms, learning environments, and education opportunities in Idaho. And so some of the facets of that programming is, the anti-racism and identity training, as well as diversity and inclusion in the classroom, and the monthly teacher talks that are going on, which allows educators to come together to discuss issues of belonging or diversity and inclusion in the classroom. I believe Whitney is going to talk a little bit about our community engagement as we move forward.
Yeah, again, I spoke on community engagement a little bit earlier, but it is as far as our 4 pathways, which are, again, community engagement, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and access, programs, and social change. Community engagement is our largest umbrella of work. It's what we do the most of, and it's probably what we're best at. And the reason why it is so important to us is because we view community engagement as the way for us, so the path for us to keep the conversation, because we want to be an organization that is keeping the conversation and the pulse alive on inclusion in Idaho. A large piece of that is community engagement, and that means all the things that you see here and more. And so creating opportunity and education for folks to continually stay involved and grow, and themselves keep the conversation going, whether it's in their own homes or their own workplaces. But that also means outreach and advocacy. And so making sure that beyond our own programming, like, hey, what do we want to do as an organization, that we are advocating for the work of other folks, and making sure that our work is actually impacting the communities that we're seeking to do that, and outreach is the same. And so making sure that our work is actually touching the communities that we want it to touch and most. And I'll speak on the education piece a little bit longer, just because that's something that we never really sort of unintentionally stumbled upon in this, but we found that, like, a big part, because our state is not necessarily leading the way in inclusion, a big part of our work is making sure that folks just either know about things happening in our own state, or like have some tools or some starting points to self-educate, whether that's DEI in the workplace, or just them spending time with their own kids or own friends about either how to be anti-racist, or just history of the LGBTQ plus community and Black folks, or whatever it looks like. But that's something that we've received a lot of feedback on, and something that folks in our community are really appreciative that we take the time to do, and we view it as a pretty important tool in sort of moving our communities forward in our state. So.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. And one of the things with this that we're excited to have return as COVID hopefully lets up a bit is our events and our public front-facing work. As Whitney mentioned, we've engaged in the Vigil for Black Lives, and a couple different events like our Joy is the Revolution March or parade. And as we're able to interact more intimately and in person, it's really important to have those close connections with our fellow neighbors and community members. And on the social change front, Inclusive Idaho aims to promote and foster lasting, positive, and impactful social and cultural shifts within the state of Idaho. And we're currently in the process of securing our 501c4 status. A 501c4 classification will enable Inclusive Idaho to champion policy and legislation at the state level, and will enable us to better advocate for underserved and minoritized communities and individuals, while raising public awareness and encouraging Idahoans to become more involved in state and local politics. that being said, it must be noted that we do not intend to utilize our 501c4 status to promote specific politicians, their campaigns, or other individual endeavors, but will remain strictly focused on policy and legislation. And I think we're at the question and answer portion.
Yeah, I see there's a question in the chat, and I wanted to, before I answer the questions, talk about the social change piece really quick. And just, I like to note, because sometimes people walk away with questions. So the 501, the reason why we're pursuing 501c4 status is because as a 501c3, you have limited ability when it comes to politics and legislation. So 501c and adding 501c4 status will allow us to have a totally separate arm of work that will allow us to dig deeper within the legislation and during the legislative session. But it'll operate separately from our nonprofit arm. And can you share more about the mentorship aspect of your outdoors work? Yeah, so we're in the process of building that because we changed a couple of times how we were originally going to go about the mentorship piece. And so what we've landed on actually is we're going to host an event that allows folks who are interested in being mentors and folks who are interested in being mentees. And most of the folks that we're looking and that are interested in being mentees basically will come together, sort of think of it as like not really speed dating, but you'll get an opportunity. What we want to do is create an opportunity for the mentees to like choose and not sort of create this atmosphere, especially because we expect immigrant and minoritized young people to be the mentees. We want to make sure that they are getting a chance to voice who they want to be their mentors, and not creating a sort of a system that is many of our other systems, which is a lot of times white folks who are feeling like they need to spend time with or sort of mentor youth of color, which isn't a bad thing, but we want to make sure that like the intentions are really pure there, and it's not sort of for clout or saviorism. And so that sort of event, which is really social and fun, will allow mentees and mentors to mingle. And then mentees will actually sort of just rate, everybody will get a number and they'll get to choose their top 3. And this is kind of funny, but this is a decision made after talking to a lot of folks who have other outdoor programs, and like, what's the best way to do this and making sure that we're serving our mentees the best way we can. Because that's what that mentorship piece is for. But we'll definitely be sharing like dates and all that stuff. And we will require like some commitment from mentees or mentors, and mentees, but specifically for mentors to commit to a certain amount of time. We're thinking a year now, at least a couple times a month where you spend time doing whatever the like interested activity is. So all those things, but I won't like totally dive in there. Ranked choice voting. Yeah, that's funny.
And I love that dynamic of the matching mentor mentees, just because it's, it's like anything else where you have an intimate relationship where growth and development takes place. It gives you an opportunity to choose somebody that you feel comfortable with, choose somebody who seems a little more aligned with you as a person, your humor, your whatever it may be. And I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and then the education question, I'll answer that too, just to say, like, we've actually put out a lot of education pieces. They're not currently on our website, but they're going back at our website in the next, like, I think it's 10 days. The person who does our website is currently out of town. Because it's somebody out of our core group. We have a professional who does our website, thank goodness now. But all of that, all of what we've done, so all of the pieces that we put together for Black History Month and anything else that we've done that's education wise will go back up, and then you'll see stuff like continually come come up, and those are always linked or downloadable. We always put our logo on them, but you can share, do what you want with them. And throughout the summer, you'll see some things take place because we're doing a lot of work, and we have a lot of toolbox. We have a lot of toolbox stuff already built for teachers as well. But you'll see more education pieces in next month as well, around Juneteenth. But yeah, we do have education pieces that we make free. So
Yeah, and I did want to mention to that point as well, the Inclusive Conversation series. I think that education also comes through the sharing of experience. And there's a lot of meaningful and wonderful insight that can be gained from hearing other people's stories, especially within your own community that you may not have experienced or engaged with before. So our Inclusive Conversation series, I'll put the link to that page in our website in the chat real quick. There's some really great conversations in there, really meaningful insight into people you may or may not have engaged with in the Treasure Valley or in Idaho at large. And I think from every one of those conversations, even though I helped facilitate one of those interviews, I learned something truly profound about some wonderful Idahoans.
yeah, and I'll say too that the professional development credit that we're offering right now, in conjunction with NNU, that is going to be re-upped in the fall. So that's something, if you know an educator or even someone who just wants to do it, it's not necessarily as worried about the PD, but it's kind of based around schools. It's something to keep in mind. And then for specific activities, honestly, we want to have a little, so for our own big initiatives and stuff, we're focused on four activities, but we want our mentors to be as diverse as possible in what activities they participate in, or would consider themselves more than a novice, to be diverse as possible, so that our mentees have as many options as possible. For us though, what we're going to invest our resources in are backpacking and hiking. And we tried to pick 3 that have a pretty decent high barrier to entry, especially cost-wise or dollars-wise, for folks who've never participated in, and specifically cost-wise. So backpacking and hiking is probably the lowest barrier to entry as far as for able-bodied folks, as far as ability and cost. And then cycling, which includes road cycling and mountain biking, rafting and angling, which includes fishing, fly fishing, anything on the water. And then climbing is the other one. So, but as far as our mentee mentors, again, we want that to be as diverse as possible. What do you think? You can answer that one.
Well, I mean, aside from the typical, usual, obvious one, financial support is always greatly appreciated. I would say just engagement. If there's something within our programming, and whether it's events or educational series, or show up, show up and support minoritized Idahoans in that way, because all too often it feels like some of the issues that come up fall on deaf ears, or the community doesn't necessarily show up in meaningful and impactful ways. So tell your friends, educate your friends. Don't alienate them by doing so, but have conversations with them about the things that we post or engage with, events that we hold, and sign up to volunteer as we move into a stage where we can actually hold more in-person events safely, hopefully coming out of COVID at this point. I would say sign up to volunteer. We will need on the ground volunteers for helping set up events, security for events, donations for water and other resources, especially in the summer months and whatnot.
And we're going to be a part of Tree Fort this year in the
That's
fall,
right.
and so that's going to be a big volunteer call.
Yeah.
And I believe that any of our volunteers are going to get a volunteer pass, which is kind of cool.
That's a nice
So
little perk.
right, but yeah, I think as a nonprofit, it's always easy to say like, hey, we need money. Duh. But I think that like even bigger than that, like Austin said, I'll reiterate, it is share our things, like support our work in whatever way you can. And if that just means like sharing your Instagram post or letting someone know about something that we're doing or something we're working on, that's huge, especially for an organization like ours. That's relatively new. So yeah. All right. Well,
Yep.
oh,
There we go.
um, Instagram is our best one. And then from there, any of the rest of them, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But Instagram's definitely the hot spot. If you have gear, you can just shoot us an email at info@inclusiveidaho.org and let us know. We're transitioning office spaces right now. So we normally have like a designated space and time, but you can just shoot us an email and then one of us will meet up with you to grab it from you and store it.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. I'll let Austin answer, but I'll just quickly say that like a big part of our wellness program right now is just creating opportunity and access more
Mhm.
than anything. And so we really want to dismantle the safety and access opportunity barrier, and that means making sure that minoritized communities have as much access as they need to physical and mental wellness without bearing the burden of the cost.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think so health coaching to promote wellness. As an organization, that's not something that we've specifically discussed. But I think personally, I do know some health coaches that would likely be interested and are part of the LGBTQ community. And so, yeah, I think that is, as we develop that program and as it grows and becomes more established, that is something that we will and should look into. I feel like Whitney is writing it down right now.
Yeah, I'm saying a few notes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea. Every program had to start somewhere, but I think that would be a great addition as we have the capacity to grow and develop that. Thank you for the suggestion.
Okay, well, I will give it like, I don't know, 2 more minutes since there's not a ton of y'all on here, just to make sure nobody has any other questions, and then we will hop off. My lighting is going away. You can see in my my dining room / office. It's on the side of my face.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank y'all for joining us. I don't know, Kimmy, if you're going to close or anything, but it was fun being here today, and we appreciate it. So.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here, Austin and Whitney. It's been really wonderful hearing from you. I'm really excited about the work that you guys are doing. It's just so exciting to be working to make sure that all Idahoans get to feel safe and healthy and also have access to the outdoors that I know have been a big part of my physical and mental health. So thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you for being part of Green Tide 2021. We do want to invite everyone to join us for the rest of tomorrow's activities. The link to that will be in the chat. And tonight we do really want to encourage everyone to support the work that Inclusive Idaho is doing. You guys are doing really great work. And so I would ask you to make a gift to support them. And you can do so at inclusiveidaho.org/support us. And I'm actually going to drop that in the chat real quick so that we can share that with everyone. And then, yeah, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you guys sharing your expertise. And if you have any lingering questions, feel free to reach out to us at CVI or directly to Whitney and Austin. And I think they said their email was info@inclusiveidaho.org. It's a pretty good, easy one. So yeah, thank you all again so much and have a great rest of your evening.
All right. See y'all.
Hey, thank you so much.